welcome back to another World of Tanks with Guinea Titan, and I want to just talk a little bit about the True Vision test which took place over the weekend, ending today, Tuesday. I'm making the video. Don't know if I'll get it out on Tuesday, but I'm starting to make this and put my thoughts together. So what exactly is the True Vision? Well, True Vision is an experiment they ran in September. They basically wanted the tanks are rendered all the time. So if you have a line of sight to the tank, in your screen resolution, your eyesight's good enough, you should be able to see it moving. Now, generally, I have only once or twice, I think I've noticed the tank on the screen with the naked eye. But that brings up my first concern with True Vision. Does this benefit hugely to people with the latest and greatest equipment? So if you have a PlayStation 5 at 4K, or you have an Xbox Series X with 4K, and you have a higher response, fast refresh TV with very high contrast and pixel density, will you have a significant advantage over a person with 1080p 10-year-old TV or whatever, or playing on a original Xbox One or something like that? Is that going to be an issue? It certainly seems to also favour young people over older people, because again, they'll have better eyesight. They'll be more likely to pick out the 2 pixels moving in the background kind of phenomenon that might indicate a tank on a snowfield or a field of grass or whatever. Now, with this particular iteration of the test, they brought in a couple of other changes. So they brought in plus or minus 1 matchmaking. They increased the camouflage ratings of light tanks from tiers 4 to 10 and tank destroyers tiers 4 to 10, and they restricted the map selection or the map rotation. Now, personally, I feel most of those things are benefits to Wargaming to make the thing a bit easier to analyze, except maybe the increased camo ratings of tank destroyers and light tanks. I'd be very curious to know what the result of that particular test is, because I'm pretty sure that Yak Tiger I'm going to start shooting at soon, or if I haven't shot it already, I would have probably spotted in a normal game here on Arctic. I'm not sure if the benefit of that, though, outweighs the disadvantage being seen the whole time. Maps on World of Tanks console are relatively small as far as I can tell. They have relatively low amounts of foliage, certainly in comparison to equivalent maps in World of Tanks PC. Although I think they've been increasing. Some of the ones that have been revamped, I think, and some of the newer ones seem to me to have significantly more foliage. And in the limited amount of time that I played it with the light tanks, I do think it's harder to play light tanks in the current meta. Now, I didn't try slow, fragile tank destroyers, where I think the tank destroyers would be most negatively impacted with things like the Nashorn, the Stuart Emil, the Borsigs, all this world, the Archers and things like that, where tanks that rely on concealment. I think they would be also disadvantaged by True Vision. The other thing is the tanks that are advantaged. I think scouting in general is disadvantaged by True Vision. Although to really negatively impact, I think you'd probably need to be playing more tank destroyers. Well, that said, significant number of tank destroyers in this game. But it would take a while before some of the ramifications would become visible in the game, because people's reaction to how it plays would change. I think it is adjustable. I mean, it didn't affect or negatively impact my enjoyment of the weekend playing World of Tanks, to be honest with you. I do think it negatively impacted my light tank playing, because it's something I haven't been doing in a while, and certainly not with those particular tanks. And I tend to play a kind of a passive scouting type game, which has been affected by the way things have changed over the last year or so in World of Tanks, particularly since the merge. I think there's just a different meta, and I haven't done much light tanking under the current meta. So I don't know how much of that would be my rustiness with light tanks and how much of it is due to one vision. It is a significant advantage, I think, though, to have a high velocity gun in when you can see the tank, because if you can see a tank that you can't target, then the fact that your shot goes straight through makes it much more likely to hit that target than if your shot is in a high looping arc to that direction where it could fall short by huge amounts, some tens of meters or maybe 100 meters or more. Or it could just sail over the tank that you're firing at, because again the dispersion and the high arc and the shell. Because the best you can do is just point the gun in the general direction of the tank and kind of hope for the best, or just look where the dot on the reticle is and see if you could walk your fire on from there. Whereas, which also would be a problem in tanks with low ammunition capacity, where you couldn't afford to do that sort of stuff. So, for instance, a Death Star, which doesn't actually have 12 rounds of ammunition and not great dispersion, poor enough dispersion, would you risk firing at a tank that you can see but can't target, as distinct from a tank that you could target, knowing that you've only got about 12 shells, and if you waste 4 of them on this thing and every one of them misses, that's what, 8,000 potential damage that you have neglected? I don't know. It also massively impacts the current game mechanics. It negates quite a lot of the current game mechanics, because a lot of the current skill in the game, there are a number of levels of skill in this game. One of them is the basic going out there, figuring out the maps, how to get to places and engage with the enemy, should we say, without being shot at unnecessarily. How does concealment work? How does spotting work? What does your sixth sense mean and stuff like that? What does it mean when you're detected and various other things like that? And a lot of that's negated. Those mechanics become irrelevant if you can actually see the tanks. Even if you can't alert your teammates, or you probably can, they could change the messaging saying, I can see tanks. Or something to that effect. But at the moment you can't, if you can't engage with the tanks, you can't target them. You can't alert people to their existence either. All you can really do is kind of take pot shots at them from a distance and hope for the best. But tricks people do in game on a regular basis, where they can, they have a light tank or a medium tank, and they're completely outclassed, or there's a large number of enemy, say, tanks that they outspot. So they sit out beyond the detection range of those tanks, but within their view range, and just plink away at them until the tanks realise they're being spotted by a hidden enemy and take cover. And you can farm quite a lot of damage, and it's a very effective tactic. For instance, if you're outnumbered, you're outnumbered at the end of the game or something like that, where you have the mobility to get into positions where you can fire on the enemy and they have no chance of seeing you back. Now, a lot of those positions in the current game are actually exposed, tops of the hills, ridgelines, and various other locations, and they're now inaccessible, because you go there, you can be spotted by anyone. Ridgelines, I have noticed actually, the tanks, particularly on clean maps with no foliage, like say El Aluf, you're sitting on a ridgeline in El Aluf, you're very obvious. In fact, a careful examination, you will, once they're I've spotted a tank with the binoculars, zoomed in, and then when I zoomed back out, I could still see him sitting on the ridgeline, because he was actually an actual visible 4 or 5 pixel discontinuity on the ridgeline from 3/4 way across the map in El Aluf. So this brings up a question then as to what are the how do these mechanics work? How will they work going forward with this kind of thing brought in? Because obviously you would have to rework. They're useless as they stand. The experience sunk into extra view range, extra camouflage, even Sixth Sense to a certain extent, is now negated by this change in the mechanics. So what should you have been doing instead? and what other mechanics should be brought in to replace it. I don't know, but it's a significant question. Another thing that strikes me about that on the whole, does it advantage new players? I don't know. That's a difficult one. I think certainly might give them a better chance. They have a better chance, I think, of figuring out that somebody is over there and seeing them than they would otherwise, because you won't be totally invisible. Another significant and pertinent issue is actually camouflage, because quite a lot of the default camouflage patterns are not exactly the pattern that you would choose if you were actually really working on that map. Or some of the nation's patterns aren't exactly suitable for some of the maps that you're on. They don't break you up enough against the background of the actual map. So do you want more camouflage patterns? Do you need more dynamic camouflage to reflect, say, your camouflage quality of the crew? So maybe the camouflage quality of the crew might make the camouflage more dynamic. So if you have a crew with the camo skill, you now get an actual visible camouflage that more closely fits into the background of the map to make you actually harder to see on that particular map. That'd be interesting. And it would certainly make the skill worthwhile again. Maybe that's the sort of thing they should do. So people can let me know in the comments what they think, if they want to, if they have any comments to make about this particular aspect of the game. The one thing that I do find interesting about it is that it suggests that there is the possibility of some kind of World of Tanks console 2.0 in the works. A revamping of the World of Tanks console game. This is the game we would make now that we've had a bit of practice, and that would be interesting, because that would suggest that there's a potential for a major investment in the game, that Wargaming actually sees some kind of a future to this game, and they're not just there to milk it for every penny that they can get out of it, because they know it's a dying game and it's just they're just curating it to last as long as possible. I don't know. That would be the optimistic take, or the optimistic message to take out of this. Let me know what you think anyway, and thank you for watching and putting up with my rambling, and I will catch you all again soon. Bye for now. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please press like, comment, share. It really helps the channel out, and if you have not already done so, please subscribe to the channel. I will catch you all again soon. Bye for now.